I'm pissed. Well, after fighting off a headache and during a recording that had extremely jank ass audio, we're back here to talk about these extremely racist and biased interviews done by mostly so called United Kingdom journalists. You see, a few, I think, like literally last Saturday, Hamas broke through the border wall and fired a bunch of rockets at Israel. And, a lot of bad shit happened because Hamas are Islamic extremists, they're terrorists, and they wind up, killing and kidnapping a bunch of people, fighting with the police, fighting with the IDF, and, just causing a huge amount of harm. And in response, this dude who's actually the Palestinian ambassador and also the a part of the opposition party, Fatah, went to do interviews about the problems that's going on in Gaza, Israel, or West Bank and shit like that. And all these interviews refuse to engage with any systemic analysis on the things that are going wrong, systemically in the West Bank, in Gaza, in Israel with their administration of these regions. He's trying to tell them that the reason why people turn to terrorist organizations is not because people are ignorant and want to kill people, but because people in these regions feel as though they have nothing to live for. We've seen it time and time again throughout history, whether it's the whether it's like black and Latino street gangs or white people becoming fascists and neo-Nazis. When people feel like they don't have nothing to live for, when capitalism, white supremacy, and colonialism and other forms of oppression and apartheid are it's being felt like they're depriving the rights and liberty of a certain group of people, they turn to radical movements. In Palestine in particular, you have the far right Islamic extremists or the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine or Democratic Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which are, communist organizations, but ironically enough, they commit terror too. And I, of course, condemn that also. But how do we solve this problem actually? Is we give Palestinians food, water, electricity, sustenance. Give them what they need to live and survive. When you give people what they need to survive, they are less likely to be vulnerable to the talking points of extremist organizations because they will have no reason to falter and go to these organizations that are radicalizing people to Islamic extremism and jihadism. And keep in mind also that a lot of the people that are in these especially in Gaza, because a lot of their parents have gotten killed, are between like 18 and 19 years old. And these young men, especially extremely religious young men, are vulnerable to these talking points when they feel as though they have nothing to live for. Like, just imagine for a second if any day could be a bombing raid, any day could be a raid by the IDF, any day could be, I don't know, freaking you drinking water that tastes salty. Any day you could die from disease or sickness through thanks to inadequate Medicare and the UN or United States of America, who claims to stand for liberty, does nothing about it. So what do you have left besides extremism? Now I'm not condoning any of the shit that they do, and will have done or will do in the future. But all I am saying is that Palestinian people deserve liberty and they deserve to have something to live for. Otherwise, people will continue to be vulnerable to these extremist organization, be there on the far right, Islamic extremist Hamas, or the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the far left. And as we go on to these racist fucking interviews, Hamas is obviously a terrible organization full of people that are pieces of shit. That's not to be understated. You can't say that on the news, but you can say it on my YouTube channel. I guess I can say it. Nobody is condoning that organization's existence, but the reason why that organization exists is because the Palestinian people have for so long been deprived of freedom and the necessities to live. And any leftists out there who are saying like dumbass shit like, oh, there can be a form. No, this is not liberation. This is not sane, insurgency or armed resistance. The Hamas terrorists, they're terrorists. They're terrible people. And all the leftists defending these motherfuckers need to keep in mind, because a lot of y'all are not exactly the most I don't want to say God fearing, though I'm Christian, but y'all are not the most straight laced people. And a lot of these people in Hamas would not take kindly to you. So keep that in mind. Let's get into this racist ass interview. I'm actually trying to watch 3.
Obsession with condemning the victims and blaming the victims, and
because you got to keep in mind also, during these entire interviews as we watch this dude's in an opposition party. Fatah fought Hamas in a civil war for control over the Gaza Strip and West Bank. Obviously Fatah is able to control the West Bank, but they were not, of course, able to take control over the Gaza Strip. And keep in mind that Israel also had this right here, Times of Israel. Yeah. You can read this article if you want to. I may or may not link in the description, but I'm sure you can see Times of Israel. Typed in Netanyahu propped up a Hamas, and this video will come up. And yes, obviously, because a social democratic or even communist or leftist movement speaking for the humanity of Palestinian people would be harder to fight and argue against, they wind up propping up the Islamic extremists as a way to drive a wedge between the general population and Palestinian people. And you will notice throughout this entire interview, they're trying to merge Palestinian people together with the Islamic extremist group Hamas. These people are not one and the same, and often are at conflict with each other's interests. So keep that in mind as we go forward.
Condemning the occupied, the colonized, the besieged for so many years. And this morally abhorrent approach of always talking about Israel's right to self-defense, that Israel is under siege. I saw your title all the last hours, as if there is a war. This dehumanization of Palestinians has got to end and stop immediately, especially that lives are being lost, and this is very tragic. And regrettable. So please don't stop always your interviews by asking this question. I will not.
The trouble
I
is,
will not indulge,
because he should not indulge it. And that was a wonderful response. He did better than I thought he could have done to respond to such a biased and dumbass fucking question. Because keep in mind that even fighting Hamas and the other the 2 left-wing groups that helped them along, you got to keep in mind that Hamas is a ragtag group of militants, of Islamic extremists with very little military equipment. The most that they have is literally some RPGs, AK-47s, and some surface-to-air missiles that are unguided by, mind you, and that are put together in rinky-dink ass conditions. While Israel is a multi-billion-dollar military with fighter jets, bombers, tanks in the army. Organized military, and even a more organized society, I dare say. So there's no way you can equivocate the things done by Hamas militants or the Democratic Front for Liberation of Palestine with the things that Israel does to Palestinian people. Because you got to keep in mind, all the shit that's been happening, the seizures of property, the jailing, the deportations, the taking of resources away from these people, the fact that these people experience rolling blackouts, the fact that a lot of these people, elders, especially in the Gaza Strip, are literally dead. They died over the past half century or so, thanks to all the continuing wars. I don't want to hear shit about people trying to say that because it's like we want to somehow have a conversation about why Hamas and other groups are popular, but we don't want to talk about the fact that other conditions that Palestinian people have to live in that cause them to be radicalized to join these extremist groups, whether it's the Islamic extremists or the communists.
I will not indulge in this. 2 million people in Gaza have been taken hostage by Israel for the last 16 years. 16 years. Have you ever asked an Israeli spokesman or official to condemn that? Have you asked an Israeli official to condemn what their prime minister said yesterday? That
Because keep in mind, this is fucking awful. This would be like asking a black activist, you know, like me, if I'm out for like Black Lives Matter or something like that. Well, we saw a few videos of these black kids robbing this old white man and robbing this white woman. Do you condemn that? How could you be you're a political activist for your people, but you're not condemning these crimes? Like, of course the fucking people condemn the crimes, but we can condemn the crimes while also having a conversation about why these crimes happen. Don't be fucking simple-minded.
Bombard civilian areas. Have you asked or expect the Israelis to condemn what they do in Jerusalem and occupied Jerusalem and the West Bank? So stop this. There is no symmetry between the occupied and the occupier, the colonized and the colonizer. Enough.
These attacks, though, will do nothing, will they, to stop the occupation?
He literally just like said he don't support the attacks to begin with, and he's not gonna keep engaging with it. Are you fucking deaf, bro? Is there something wrong with you? I remember I watched this yesterday when the audio recording got fucked up. I forgot how racist and fucking ignorant this fucking interview is. Like, fuck you, man. Like, this dude just laid out a whole table of systemic issues to talk about, and you go right back to talking about the attacks that this man fucking condemns. And this man, keep in mind, is a part of the opposition party.
Gaza is now facing a prospect.
Because this is like saying that all Palestinians are terrorists and are down with the shit that Hamas does, or even the stuff that the communists partake in. No, everybody's not. Every Palestinian person is not down for this fucking terrorism. But they keep getting radicalized into it if you keep being racist towards them and not giving them resources.
Of a ground invasion by Israel. So the desired effect hasn't worked.
Because this also fuels into the whole thing. And all the official statements from the US, the UK, that Israel is going to do this and that, and now they will bombard the entire Gaza. Israel must be told by the international community that it has to respect international law, that it
100%, because yes, and this is the last time I'm gonna pause it like this and I'm gonna let it play through. But keep in mind how densely packed Gaza is when it comes to its population centers and shit like that. Israel claims to be bombing quote unquote buildings that have the leaders of terrorists in them, but you got to keep in mind it's so densely packed that a lot of innocent people are getting killed and are getting hospitalized, with the fact that Israel cut off water and electricity. So it's harder to actually treat these people with these illnesses or these injuries, because Israel is cutting off water and electricity. And this word on the street is they claim to be gearing up for a ground invasion, or at least a siege / encirclement, which is illegal under international law also. And this is not going to lead to anything but the death of millions of Palestinian people who have nothing to do with Hamas, who are trying to live their lives in the best parameters that they can, but a lot of these people, of course, aren't going to make it back.
As an occupying force has the full absolute responsibility to protect civilians under its occupation, not to target them, as you have seen in the last hours in Gaza, bombarding entire residential compounds, wiping out entire families sleeping in their homes. The world must understand that this isn't about some clash.
Because I would even be surprised if Gaza didn't even have air raid sirens.
Here and there. This isn't about Hamas. This is about a people, more than 13 million Palestinians inside and in the refugee camps outside, that have been subjected to oppression systematic for the last 100 years. And it started here in the UK when the UK gave on a silver plate Palestine to the Jewish immigration. And it continues, and it continues until now. It continues, Nick. It continues, this denial that our people are fighting for their lives. Literally, I called my nephew this morning. My sister lives in Gaza. I called her, and then my nephew picked the phone, and he said, "Uncle, you know what? We're dying anyway." So this is the situation in Palestine right now, and the world is responsible in having my nephew thinking this way and having 13 million
people in Gaza, Ambassador, are people in Gaza now braced for what might happen?
What has been happening for them for the last so many decades is horrible. is unimaginable, is unbelievable. This is the biggest open-air prison on earth. And every once in a while, Israel visit them with its fire, huge fire, from air, from sea, from land, killing thousands. They are unable to travel, to work, to hope, to aspire for anything. You're talking about generations, Nick, generations. And should I tell you about the people in the occupied West Bank? It's even worse. What are they their land is being confiscated. They are now subjected not only to the Israeli army brutality, but to the settler militias in Hawara, in Nablus, in Al Khalil, Hebron, in of course Jerusalem. You've seen what happened in Al Aqsa Mosque. You've seen the spitting on Palestinian Christian worshippers only last week. This is a system of racial domination on the top of a military occupation, compounded by colonization. Pure racism. The Palestinian people have the right to defend themselves. They
Ambassador, let's turn to what
we have the right to
now.
Shout out, and we have the right to say enough.
Let's turn to Palestinians calling for a meeting of the...
Oh man, I'm so sorry, my brother. Man, this dude has been going on interviews doing this shit for about this entire week now. It is now Saturday from Saturday, and every interview he keeps getting asked the same racist bullshit, and it has to like really build frustration inside somebody. And if I could ever meet this man in person, I would give him I'd give him a strong ass handshake and a nice hug, because he fucking needs to know that it's people out here listening and that care about what's going on in Palestine.
Arab League. What influence can the Arab League have on this?
Big influence, and that's exactly what should happen. We are concerned. We are worried. We want the Israeli killing machine to stop. We know who's in government in Israel now. We know the likes of Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, Smotrich. Those are supremacists.
And keep in mind, when we say killing machine, it's like I keep saying over and over again. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, has an air force, a navy, and a organized ground unit. It's not just a bunch of jackasses, like 2,500 of them with AK-47s and a few RPGs and some rockets. This is a organized battalion, a organized military with the power of a Western nation, pretty much. So, this equivocation of the destruction that the IDF brings to Gaza and West Bank with the, terror attacks is very dishonest in a way that you can frame it. And this is not me saying that the things that Hamas or any other group does or the communist does is good, because I'm not going to keep saying PFLP. I'm going to just say communist, because they are, or claim to be at least, communist. While the things that they do are not good, it's not equivalent, because some people jumping over a fence or coming through a fence and every so often in committing terror attacks is not the same as some people how I want to say bombing you with an F-16 Eagle or F-15 Eagle, Strike Eagle.
Those are capable of committing genocide, Nick. Genocide, and that's what they are preparing for. So
right,
we need...
Literally, because they literally told 2 million people that they have to move to the south of Gaza, I believe, within 24 hours. And it's 2 million people. A lot of them don't have cars and other forms of transportation. There's no street lights, no phone lines, for sure. And these people are just supposed to leave. And the international community is sitting on their ass not doing nothing. This is disgusting genocide if I've never seen it before.
Wisdom. We need
and keep in mind also, a lot of these people are kids. Because it's like I keep having to reiterate. I'm older than a lot of Palestinians in Gaza. So this is a bunch of kids who've barely had the life experience to understand what's going on in front of them. They are probably 9 times out of 10 the survivors of the last war and the last wars before this, because it goes not too far back, but it goes so far back. And they now have to figure out how to wrestle themselves up and leave their homes, because Israel won't give Gaza the amenities to survive, and propped up the Hamas Islamic extremists.
And we need the international community, starting with the Arab League. So we are looking forward to the Security Council to enforce international law equally. Israel has grown for 75 years.
Because yes, if any other country did half the shit that Israel has done in Palestine, their fucking country would be bombed into a fucking crater. The only countries that can get away with the shit Israel does, and technically it is, are nuclear powers like Russia and China. Are the only two countries, but that get away with human rights abuses. But if it was like literally Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, some of these countries, especially during the Arab Spring, had revolutions where, Libya, for example, these places get bombed into the fucking pavement. So keep that in mind.
Accustomed to the fact that it is the exception to the rule, that it is above the law, that it has complete immunity granted by the US, by the UK, and the rest of the West. This is
because people literally refuse to entertain the assertions that Israel can be doing things that are reprehensible and wrong to the Palestinian people, because you want to kill somebody. Because it's like this: I don't give a fuck. In my opinion, if I was a military commander or a president, if you have, like, let's say some militants that we're supposed to take out, it doesn't matter if they're Islamic extremists. I don't give a fuck if they're Nazis. I wouldn't care if they're communists or whatever. Not to say communists are my enemy, but let's say we have to take these people out, but they're in a building or apartment block with a bunch of residents. I would then say, we don't bomb the fucking building so all those innocent people don't die. And it doesn't matter if they are using them as human shields. You don't get to get everything that you want in life. And sometimes being the better person means not pulling the trigger, not, throwing the first fucking blow. Showing that you have more humanity than your enemies sometimes entails you letting your enemies live or letting your enemies escape. This is a basic life concept. This is shit that you learn from like literal cartoons and stuff. And Israel is refusing to, and the rest of the international community too, America, Britain, France, Germany, and all the rest of the Western powers are refusing to entertain the assertion that that the things that Israel is doing, just because they're quote unquote after terrorists, are war crimes. This is just like the invasion of Iraq, but that's a whole nother can of worms. But just keep in mind, like, chasing down terrorists at the expense of civilians is never worth it, no matter the political ideology.
It's about time that we learn the lessons and we stop repeating the mistakes and we stop dehumanizing the Palestinian people. We are a people.
Cut that shit out. Stop saying every Palestinian person likes Hamas. In fact, the fucking Israeli government propped them up because they know it's easier to argue against the humanity of Palestinian people when they're represented by Islamic extremists and jihadists.
Under oppression, we seek freedom, we seek independence and sovereignty, we seek to take back our land. Israel must just get out. They're
not going to get out, as you put it, yet. This is going to go on for a long time, isn't it?
You asked me about the Security Council. The Security Council decided 56 years ago in 1967 that Israel has got to leave now, immediately. You asked me about the United Nations, numerous UN resolutions that Israel is committing violations of international law, war crimes, crimes against humanity. You asked me about the international community, Amnesty International here, Human Rights Watch in the US. Every major international human rights organization confirms that Israel commits the crime against humanity of apartheid, of a system of racial segregation. So the world for so many years, decades, 75 years, is not heeding us. And the world is trying to bypass us. And you are seeing what happened. Since we signed the Oslo Accords, we, the Palestinian National Movement, have committed in iron way to our own commitments, to recognize Israel, to commit to negotiations and non-violence, and thirdly, to commit to international resolutions and international legitimacy. Israel was expected to end its occupation, was expected to stop its colonial expansion. It has never done so one time since we signed 30 years ago. Every day there is a new settlement. Every day there is a new expansion. And the world has failed miserably.
We'll have to leave it there. Time is against us.
No, stop trying to cut him off, because the only reason why he's cutting him off and claiming to be quote-unquote out of time for the things that he's saying is because he's saying factually correct information about the situation in Israel and in Palestine. So this guy's job is to prevent him from saying, more shit that will bring sympathy to the Palestinian people. Because in this last couple of sentences, in this entire interview, He has not said anything controversial. Everything he said was just simply factual information.
Last sentence. This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for the world to wake up and resolve this issue that will be the beginning of stability in the region and worldwide.
Ambassador, thank you very much indeed for your time on Sky News today.
Oh, fuck off, you asshole. And I also want to watch this interview. I hope it's previous, yeah.
First of all, do you condemn this terror attack by Hamas?
What the fuck do you think, you hunk, you whole ass punk bitch dumb motherfucker? What the fuck do you think? You really think does this woman to you look like an Islamic extremist? You think this woman, a educated woman, a woman in a position of fucking power, loves Islamic extremism? What type of jackass question is that? I was trying not to start this off by saying a lot of curse words. That's why you heard me like skip and bump a little bit at the beginning of what I was saying. But fuck you for saying that. What the fuck is wrong with you? You think an educated woman that's not wearing she's not even fucking wearing a hijab. You think this woman likes Islamic extremism? Do you like Nazis? Keep in mind, these are the same motherfuckers that when they hear like, all white people have like inherent racism, which is debatable. I give you that. They, same fucking people.
Well, I'm not sure why we should be spending time instead of putting context asking me about my opinion. I'm here as an analyst and I don't represent anybody, Mark.
That was a wonderful response to that dumbass question. What the fuck is wrong with you, you idiot?
I don't think this is the relevant question. We seem to be obsessed with asking the same questions, with talking about the same things, with demanding some sort of line to be drawn between good guys and bad guys, and you should know better. You should know that the story is far more complex and nuanced than that.
Well, it is possible to have a human reaction to these things,
of course,
and I just wondered what yours was.
Viewers time to give them.
Like I said, same people. I should have used this one. Maybe that's some. White people have it easier in society than people of color. I'm so. How dare you? Do you have any idea how hard I worked? Same fucking people.
Context rather than my opinion, which naturally would be that I can't tolerate to see any civilian put in a situation of danger, and unfortunately, this is commonplace in a country that has been under occupation and brutal oppression for over half a century. It doesn't always make the news on your screen, but it's an everyday reality for Palestinians.
Whoopsie.
Well, it quite often does make the news on our screen, but the reason I'm asking...
No, fuck it does not, dude. If you really want to hear and see the suffering of Palestinian people, you literally got to go digging on the internet for a bunch of shit that they actually have to deal with and go through. Because even now, if you just watch mainstream media, whether we're talking American liberal, American conservative, or British liberal and British conservative, even from the fuck-ass Labour Party and shit, and I'm sure in other Western aligned nations, the only thing that you see or hear is that the Israeli Air Force is bombing terrorists. And you don't hear or see none of the shit, none of the fucking refugee crisis, none of the fucking the medical emergencies, none of the fucking children starving. You don't hear about none of the fucking settlements. You don't hear about none of the fucking the dirty ass water that get piped into fucking Palestine. The only thing you hear is about Hamas. And even further on, hearing about Hamas all the time, you don't even hear about the other movements like Fatah or any other communist movements that are in Palestine. You hear over and over and over and over again, everything is Hamas this, Hamas that. And let alone it being any type of systemic analysis to what's going on in this country.
Is that you are an analyst and you know about these things, and I just wondered what you thought was achieved by, murdering women and children by mass.
What in this bitch at this bitch cannot stop asking her that. She's clearly in a fucking West Bank. Can you fucking read? Can you read right here? She's in a West Bank. She's a member of the more secular. She's a member of the secular opposition party to Hamas. I'm sure this woman is a representative of Fatah, just like the last guy was. Do you really think this woman, is she wearing her job? Do you think that if she, not even that, women in Islamic extremist movements are not even allowed to be in the politics or even speak on these highly divisive educational matters that you're speaking on now? Yet you keep asking this woman this dumbass question, dude. What the fuck is wrong with you? And we all know the fucking massacre was bad. Of fucking course. But all fucking Muslim people, if she's even Muslim, you don't know if this woman's even Muslim. You don't, and it's like it's obvious she's not associated with any Islamic extremist movement. Not to say that there hasn't been women like that, like during the Chechen war, and I'm sure to some extent during the Palestinian, conflicts and what have you, and the stuff in Syria. There have been women that armed themselves, but this woman is not. She's not a jihadist. Clearly fucking not. This is just racism. You're being racist towards this woman. You keep asking her these dumbass questions. These racist ass questions. And I just don't understand why. You really think, dude, like this woman gives a fuck? Well, this woman is like a supporter of an Islamic extremist movement that would have her stripped of all her rights and put into bondage.
Massacring people at a music,
and it's like I keep saying it over and over because motherfuckers don't think. Like you're literally to ask a educated Arab woman, does she support Islamic extremism? You gotta literally be not fucking thinking. The fuck, dude.
Festival and taking these hostages. I wonder, what is Hamas seeking to achieve by that?
So why are you asking her that? Ask fucking Hamas. Ask their representatives and spokesmen and shit like that. What the fuck are you asking her for? She told you that she's not there as a representative of like any political organization or military organization. She told you she was there as a fucking analyst. So what the fuck are you asking her that for? And who knows what the fuck they want? Nobody can fucking know. I damn sure couldn't know looking on the internet. Ask Israel. If anybody can find out, ask the fucking Israeli government. Asking Netanyahu up his ass. Ask his stupid ass. How the fuck is this woman supposed to know?
Well, let me start from the beginning, which is that for months,
working my last
and even here on Sky News, experts and observers like me have warned the situation is reaching a breaking point. Israel is killing a record number of Palestinian civilians. It is imprisoning a record number of Palestinians, demolishing a record number of Palestinian homes. There is absolutely no horizon. You have a right-wing government that has stated its goal.
A fascist government.
As decimating hope for Palestinian statehood. So that end reality brought us to where we are now, where diplomatic efforts are labeled as diplomatic terrorism, where academics who speak out.
That's a new one. Diplomatic terrorism? What the fuck? So it's like no matter what the Palestinian people do, excuse me while I put my phone on the charger, and even if it's through diplomacy, it's through using their words and talking about their issues, it's still viewed as terrorism. This shit definitely mirrors the shit that goes on against black people, Latino people, and many others in the United States, where anything you do, you protest peacefully, you speak on the news, you try to pass resolution. Because like a lot of people literally say that, defunding the police is an act of violence because you're trying to destroy the country and take away from... I'm not going to get too far off topic, but you know what I mean. This is bullshit. So it's like no matter what they do, they can't do nothing but die and suffer. And it's like if they speak out, whether it's through their politicians and pundits, whether they have more secular, more social democratic or left-leaning movements, that doesn't matter. And at the end of the day, all these people got to get labeled as Islamic extremism. This is fucking racist.
Are labeled as anti-Semitic, where any mobilization in civil spaces for justice, for Palestinian rights is also labeled and maligned. There were no avenues. And it was an opportunity for groups like Hamas and others.
Because you gotta keep in mind, no avenues of resistance in a peaceful way for a bunch of young kids. These young men that join these terror groups, and it doesn't matter which one it is because there's multiple groups. And in fact, during this video, I'm going to pull some up on screen. They feel like they don't have no choice and they have nothing to live for, because as their parents and grandparents and uncles and aunties go at it from a more secular and you know, how I want to put this shit. They go at it from a more secular angle, and they're trying to actually be diplomatic about the problems that Palestinians face. They're ignored and called terrorists anyway. So what do you think these 18, 19-year-old men gonna do? They're going to join terror groups
who see no other option but armed action to take center stage. That dead end, that failure to create a horizon is exactly what brought us all to this very...
And keep in mind, the West is being extremely fucking hypocritical here, because when a resistance group is trying, you know, a armed resistance group, like I want to use like the war, the Soviet war in Afghanistan as a prime example of this. So now Islamic extremism is bad. It always was bad, but you keep in mind the CIA and the U.S. government funded the Mujahideen, which was full of mostly Islamic extremism, and you know, people that are similar to the ideas of Hamas or ISIS and stuff like that. And now all of a sudden, you know, it's like biting us in the ass constantly over the years. And now all of a sudden it's like, whoa, Islamic extremism, that's bad. Because their armed resistance against the Soviet Union, though I'm not saying the Soviet Union was good or communist or socialist, was good. But these people's armed resistance against Israel and other Western powers is framed as bad. I kind of find that to be extremely ironic.
Very tragic point where everybody is suffering.
Yeah, absolutely. And clearly.
And she had a good response to that. Everyone is suffering.
Palestinians have legitimate grievances. My point is really, what does a terror attack like this do to help?
You really think the Palestinian people wanted them to take their ass to Israel so they can, because you know, like everybody else, I'm sure, in Gaza and people in the West Bank don't want the Israeli government bombing their fucking apartment buildings. Do you really think the average Palestinian supported the shit that Hamas did? And the answer is fucking no. The only reason why Hamas has any power at all is because, in a way, but not directly, they're controlled opposition. They were propped up by the Israeli government, by Netanyahu bitch ass, in order to, you know, strife any Palestinian liberation movements, to make them the face of the Palestinian people. And you can see it here in this interview and in the last one and in the next one we're going to do after this.
The Palestinians.
Well, again, it is not about that one attack. It's about a dead-end situation that, you know, we're with no options for a breakthrough.
Clean
with
out
no
your
options
fucking ears.
For an end to the occupation, with no options for an end to the siege of 2 million Palestinians in Gaza, whose majority are under 35 years of age. A 20-year-old in Gaza has already survived 5 wars. So one of them at least lasted for 51 days. In every one of them, hundreds of children were killed. Entire families were wiped out, just as they are being right now in Gaza. So the answer really for me, has to do with changing the mantra and changing the way we deal with this. This is not about good guys versus bad guys. It's not about whether you allow Israel, which is accused of documented war crimes, to commit even more war crimes in order to maintain its stranglehold and control over the Palestinians. It's about ending this once and for all, about giving Palestinians their right to be free from this cycle, free from being beholden to a dynamic of violence and brutality, both ways.
Oh, that's the end of the interview. Ain't that a bitch? You notice that they try to, cause like I noticed something about the Palestinian people. They're at least the people that are going on this media circuit, they're getting pretty fucking good at dealing with these racist interviews. Good on them. And there's one more interview I want to watch. That's because I watched a couple of shorts today. That's because when I popped on here, the Humanist Report video I was drawing from was on here. Where's that shit at? Yeah, it was this one right here. Where's that shit at? Yeah, it was this one. One last interview. We got a little light rain outside. Oh boy. At some point. That pops up because I used to have AT&T, but I switched to T-Mobile home internet.
Well, there about the people missing, the hostages taken, the mothers, the elderly women, children taken.
The look on this guy's face, he's like, bro, I'm so over this shit. These motherfuckers keep asking me the same shit over and over again, but refuse to talk about the systematic displacement and seizure of property from and the seizure of resources from Palestinian people. But y'all keep asking them the same shit. Of course, this dude is in an opposition party. You know he's in an opposition party. You think a member of Hamas is like whether it's the political or military establishment would travel all the way to fuck to Britain in order to try to justify the shit that they did? You think they'll be able to afford that? This man is here for a fucking reason, bitch.
Hostage. Will you condemn this atrocity by Hamas?
Why are you asking him like that? Of course he fucking does.
Kathy, I have had this question as a first question in every interview I did, and I refuse to answer that question because it is the reason why we as an international community have failed to depict the situation as it is. The business of always being
what the fuck is he gonna do? Because you're trying to basically, it's like I said, that constant equivocation that all groups of Palestinian people are fucking associated with Hamas in some way or another.
With blaming the victim, the occupied, the colonized, the besieged, when in fact I didn't see you asking her to condemn. I didn't see you.
But
I did not hear your first question to condemn the killing of an entire family.
Yes, because keep in mind, when these jets, these F-15, 16s and shit like that, these F-35 Lightnings, they do these bombing runs and shit with these air-to-surface missiles and these guided bombs and shit like that, and they knock down an apartment building. The people inside, because an apartment building can have about 200-300 people inside of it, and about 20 of them can be quote-unquote Hamas or whatever other group, and the whole building gets knocked down. All those people get killed. People on the outside, like you're let's say you're outside and you hear about the war and shit, but you're trying to like distract yourself, and you're in Gaza wiping down your moped, building collapses on you, you're fucked. Keep that in mind.
That your reporter...
No, I tackled her on the people who are losing their lives in Gaza, and I'm asking you about the people who have lost their lives, the Israelis who have lost their lives.
It's tragic.
And they say the world isn't racist anymore. It's like, keep this shit in mind during these interviews, because we talk a lot, especially about anti-black racism and shit, even on my channel, but they say that, oh, the world isn't racist, they've moved past it, and actually the people that have it hard are white people. Keep that shit in mind as we watch all this.
It's tragic.
And you condemn that
it's
atrocity.
Tragic, and this has to stop. And this approach by the international Western media has to stop also. There is no way we can draw symmetry. The one side that is responsible fully on this is the occupying power. You cannot draw symmetry between militant groups and what you call here in the West the only democracy in the Middle East.
But this was an unprovoked attack. There were people at a peace festival, at a music festival. Could be hundreds dead there, young people. They had no quarrel in this. They had no skin in this game. Why did they have to die?
Kathy, my task here is to represent my people. This isn't about Hamas. This isn't about the last 48 hours of what the Israelis have seen. My people have been seeing the same over a period of 75 years. This is about a Palestinian people, more than 13 million of us, that have been denied our very basic rights for almost a century.
But I'm asking you, as a human being, would you urge Hamas to release those hostages? As a human being?
As a human being,
How does he have any say in what the fuck them motherfuckers do or don't do? Why do y'all keep asking these academic and actual Palestinian politicians, do they have sway over a Islamic extremist militia group?
People's legitimate rights are respected.
And that includes the hostages, because after all, taking hostages is illegal in international law.
I wish safety to everybody.
So is using white phosphorus, but I don't hear you mentioning that, bitch.
But do you know, Cathy, that Israel has taken 2 million people in Gaza hostages?
Yeah, literally built a fucking wall around these people, and they determine everything that goes in and out of this fucking place. Give them dirty water, have them experience rolling blackouts. I'm sure the food situation isn't the fucking best, and I think I heard some shit where they said that Palestinian people need to be put on a diet. So get the fuck out of here with this, like, false ass equivalence.
For the last 16 years.
And you heard me asking the deputy mayor that very question.
And I haven't heard any in the Western media or the international politicians, really, the outcry about that. So it's practically, ironically, it's hostages taking hostages.
Well, I did tackle the lady in Jerusalem over that very point. But look, the attack by Hamas has now prompted this mighty vengeance, as Israel is calling it. The people of Gaza are the ones who are going to suffer. Your people are going to suffer. So how do you bring this bloodshed to an end? How do you play your part in that?
By giving my family in Gaza, because they are in Gaza, hope, horizon.
Where is the
prospect? Yeah, that's the question the Israelis need to ask themselves.
But I'm asking you that question.
No, that's not for me. Our people have been struggling for 100 years. Our people, look, you know what is so tragic as well is this supremacist thinking in Israel that they could go and wreak havoc everywhere. They could attack Palestinians, kill them, round them without charge or trial. They could steal our land. They could desecrate our holy places. They could besiege people for years. And then they ask why this is happening.
But there's the same
epitome of racism.
Yes, bitch, is systematic. Is the systematic deprivation of the Palestinian people that causes them to be vulnerable to radicalization, to Islamic extremism, or armed left-wing conflict with the Israeli government. Would you listen? Get the fucking get the chalk out of your fucking ears, you dumb motherfucker, and listen to what the man is saying. Stop trying to keep switching and bringing the narrative back to fucking Hamas. Stop it.
But there's the same attitude by Hamas, right? 700 Israelis have lost their lives.
This is the epitome of racism. If we really want to nail it down, this is a moment that serves as an alarm, a wake-up call for all of us. There is no way around the Palestinian people and our issue. There is no way but to end this occupation. There is no other route but to enforce international law and international legitimacy.
Okay, but how does your party, Fatah, bring some pressure on Hamas? Do you talk to Hamas, for example?
My party has been the party that has led the Palestine national movement. Mm-hmm. My party started the armed resistance long before Hamas. And then we gave up that and we committed to 3 things: recognizing Israel, committing to negotiations and non-violence, and committing to international law and resolutions.
Are you talking to Hamas now? Are you urging restraint?
That was 30 years ago. We did that.
Okay, but not now? You have no leverage.
Israel was expected to do one thing: end its occupation, stop its colonization. Right. You know what happened. So you come
Ambassador, I'm so sorry, we're out of time. Ambassador Zomlot, thank you very much for joining us.
Is he making too much
sense? And
on
tomorrow's program.
Is he making too much sense? Swear to God. Where's that one clip at? I guess this is the only way I'm going to find it is through the Humanist Report video. I know it's in this video, but I don't feel like wasting time looking for it. But I want to talk about this in general. Like, this clip really sticks with me. This clip keeps me up at night. Talking about the Israel-Palestine conflict. Let me see. I'm gonna just go in my history because like I said, it's this video in particular, man. I hate wasting so much time. Yeah, I believe it'd be from 2 days ago.
Governments and not people. That distinction matters. And while the Israel lobby is...
Hello, Mike. And yes, he's saying a lot of factually correct information about it being a lobby called AIPAC, I believe, that lobbies U.S. politicians not in the interest of Jewish people, but in the interest of Israel.
Look at what she continues to focus on as he explains how dire the situation is and the pain he just experienced.
They were just sitting at their home and they were simply bombarded. Their entire building was brought down. My cousin, Aya, her 2 children, her husband, her mother-in-law, and 2 other relatives died immediately, were killed instantly. And 2 of her youngest children, a twin, 2 years old, are now in intensive care. This is truly heartbreaking. And the issue here, Kirsty, is that they have no bunkers, they have no Iron Dome, they have nowhere to go. They are simply sitting ducks for the Israeli war machine.
I'm sorry for your own personal loss. I mean, can I just be clear, though? You cannot condone the killing of civilians.
You cannot be serious, bro. This bitch is literally smiling ear to ear after saying that. As she's about to say this whole dirty ass grimy bullshit talking about, because he just literally told you that 9 of his family members just died and shit, and this bitch is grinning ear to ear to ask him like, do you condemn Hamas? What the fuck do you think, dude? Do you really think that this guy, who's a member of the opposition party, keep in mind, that fought against Hamas, keep in mind, really approves of any, who had in proxy 9 of his family members die because of actions of these Islamic extremist dipshits? You really think there's a chance that this man supports Hamas? What do you think? Use your fucking brain.
Israel, can you, nor the kidnapped families?
No, we don't condone. And we are very clear, Kirsty. We reject any targeting or harming of civilians from all sides. And you are talking to a Palestinian representative, official, the ambassador that I represent my government, the PLO, the national movement of Palestine, and we have been committed to this for 30 years, not just today or yesterday. For 30 years, since the signing of the Oslo Accords, we have committed to non-violence. We have committed to negotiations, as you know.
Yes, and
so this is nothing new. That's why this question, we have done everything in our power to find a different path.
But we have a situation now, as you heard there from Mark, that Hamas may be an empty threat, threatening to kill hostages. Do you condemn that kind of action?
Listen, hostages must be protected.
This nigga literally just told this bitch that he condemns any harming of civilians. He answered all your racist questions the way that you're trying to frame them towards him. He answered already. Why do you keep asking him the same shit over and over again?
Must be made safe and kept safe. Absolutely, this has no discussion whatsoever. We must return the moral high ground, and Israel must immediately cease targeting civilians. And by the way, Kirsty, allow me to say this. This is an Israeli military doctrine. They call it the Iron Dome. Whenever there is such an incident, they go after the civilians to pressure the fighters. So you've heard one of the Israeli
Well, we know there's been a lot of strikes
just 2 minutes ago. He wanted to starve the people in Gaza. He wanted to cut electricity and water. These are war crimes, collective punishment.
So there is a possibility that both the UK and the European Commission will cut aid to Palestinians. What's your reaction to that?
That would be very...
Oh, that's very fucking stupid, because that's what keeps causing the terrorism. You're not giving people food, water, electricity, and the resources to survive. So they keep turning to terrorism, dumbass.
Very counterproductive, and it doesn't serve anything. They will do exactly what is Israel doing. They will do exactly the collective punishment and punishing the people who has nothing to do with this. My cousin is not Hamas. In fact, her husband works for the Palestinian Authority, the opponents of Hamas. These kids, 4 years and 2 years, have nothing to do with Hamas. Everybody, including these silly ideas in the world, are punishing the people that have nothing to do with this.
And we know that children that are young are also...
punishing them is a fucking understatement. I think I'm pretty much done here with this video, but yes, this is the serious problem with the situation in the Israel-Palestinian conflicts, is that I understand going after terrorists and, you know, stopping the people, or, you know, actually, because war is about killing people, and killing the people that are causing harm, conflict, and are targeting civilians. I completely understand and can concur with that. But when we go a step above that and we start blaming the entire population of a group of people for the ills of a few of them, and then we keep contributing, because like I said, this applies to crime, this applies to extremism of any kind, right or left wing, but we punish people, entire groups of people, and refuse to give these people a means of surviving, a means of having a peaceful way of life. And then we keep bringing you, then we just like, oh, why are they doing this? It's because you have to give people something to live for. Speaking of which, I was also going to look at this, dude, because I get tired of this like narrative that Hamas is the only political party in Palestine, and I quite frankly don't think that's true. We have them. What would syncretic even mean? Oh, it combines elements of right and left wing. You rarely see that. I consider this like Islamic extremism, if you ask me. That's right wing shit. You know, homophobia, sexism, extreme nationalism, thinking that their people are the superior race, anti-Semitism also. Let's just face it, like Islamic extremists have more in common with like neo-Nazism and white supremacy or Hebrew Israelitism than they do, you know, any center left or left wing type movements. Like you can't have your nationalism with free healthcare, then all of a sudden it's syncretic. I don't go with that. But yes, we got this guy here. Most of them seem to be far left. But yeah, my point here being is that there's more political parties in Palestine than just Hamas. They might somehow, thanks Netanyahu, be the majority power on paper, but they're highly unpopular, and there's other people who represent the Palestinian people. Mostly these guys. But anyways, this has been James here, and I hope especially in that last segment you learned that all Palestinian people are not Hamas. There's many more people out there with a lot more different political ideologies and thoughts than you think. And we should, you know, give that consideration instead of being racist and calling all Palestinian people Hamas. You have a good rest of your day.